Hey there. All right, I'm going to make sure I can see my notes. Give a couple of minutes so people can join and get connected. Today, we are going to be talking human design and ADHD. What does human design have to do with ADHD? That's where we're going today. I'm going to give a few minutes and let people get connected. Someone wants to pop in the chat. Let me know if you can hear me. That would be great. I'm also curious as you're coming in, if you are someone who has your chart, if you were able to print your free chart or pull it up on a computer screen, it's going to be really helpful. I'll hold mine up just so that you can see what it looks like, what I'm talking about as you're coming in. And I just have my paper version because I thought it might be just easier to see. So the human design chart, this is what it looks like. This is a copy of my chart. We're going to be going over what exactly it means and what it has to do with ADHD, neurodiversity. I'm just going to chat a little bit about my journey with it while we're waiting for people to connect. So I became interested in human design probably about 2 years ago now. And I did kind of a deep dive on my own. I listened to a bunch of podcasts. I don't actually remember how I came across it. It might have been on a podcast. Um, and then after I had worked with my chart for a little bit, I wanted to learn more. And so I actually hired a coach who specialized in human design. And I did like a 3-month study with her and learned a lot, and then continued to experiment with my design over the past 2 years. And about a year ago, I ran an experiment actually in my membership, and I offered a free reading for anyone that was interested and wanted to learn more. And what I was really wanting to do was collect some data and see if I noticed any patterns. And I did. So, some of what we're going to talk about today is just like the patterning that I recognized as I was going through that data. So, let's dive in and get started. I also want to let you know if you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to pop them in the chat. I really appreciate engagement. It actually pulls out the best information I have learned that about myself. And so, yeah, questions in the chat and let's go. Okay. So here's the first thing I want to kind of point out, highlight. Many of us who have ADHD or ADHD tendencies or identify as neurodivergent solidly use our logical minds. So we might have access to logical thinking and really rely on it. So, on the one hand, very logical. On the other hand, very strong out of the box thinkers. And both can be held at the same time. So, when we're looking at human design, just as both of those things exist in us, right? So, logical thinking as well as out of the box thinking, as within, so without. Both of those things also exist around us in our community, in our universe. And so the way I look at that is there is science and data and very linear information. And then there is what some people call woo. I'm just going to say what we're exploring today is a very out of the box concept. Okay. Not as logical. And so I just want to invite you to stay open to considering what that information might hold for you. So human design in general is sorry, frog in my throat, is a typing system. I have a love-hate relationship with typing systems. So just like ENFP, INFJ, the personalities typing systems, excuse me, so I don't clear my throat the whole time. All right, let's see if that helped. Just like those are different types of typing systems, human Enneagram, there's so many different types, personality typing systems. Human design is a type of a typing system or a framework. So I would like for us to keep that in mind. It is not a prescription. My love-hate relationship when it comes to typing systems is that labels are often involved and they can feel restrictive. So they can feel like when we are identifying as a certain type, we are restricting who we are. That is not the perspective I want us to take today when we're looking at human design. I want you to look at it as expansion, expansiveness. So like a possibility. None of it is written in stone. It's actually meant to be kind of like a treasure hunt and excavation, which is also what I like about it. My gamified brain, my brain that likes to gamify things, loves that we get to play with the concept of human design and nothing is written in stone. So the way human design works, suggestions may show up like as you look at your design, it's offering suggestions of what may show up in your life. You're being invited to a journey of contemplation. So to think about the information and how it resonates with you or doesn't. And then ultimately it's an invitation to experiment with what the information says. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So let's keep going. Let me give a little bit of a brief background on how, like, what human design is based on. So, in order to pull your chart, you may have noticed you need to actually input some data. And that data is your birth date, the time of birth, the city, the country, city, state of birth. And so I have people ask all the time, like, is this astrology? My answer is like, yes and no. And yes, no, because it's not astrology. That's a totally different type of a system. The similarities are that it is based on where the planets were located when you were born. I want to give this example because it was helpful for me when I was trying to understand this. So, just as the moon impacts the tides in the oceans, right, causes them to go out and come in, the moon also impacts us. Just as oceans are full of water, our bodies are a large percentage of water. And so, in the same way that the moon affects the ocean, that is the way the planets affect us when we were born, but also every day, all the time now. So, I would say that's the loose thread to science that human design holds. And if you can consider that, like that is why the information is needed. And if it's true, right, that uh, our body is made up of energy and planets impact energy. I mean, humans, animals, hormones can be impacted, right, with the moon. So we're going to like say moon and expand that to all planets. What human design is really looking at is energy. And I want to say how it's metabolized, not in the traditional sense, not in a nutritional sense, but in the sense of like, how do we obtain our energy? How do we move energy through our body? And how do we direct it into the things that we want to do and create? Okay. So I want you to think about it as an energy direction system. Let's get into some of the like breakdown details of human design, just so you have a visual image of it. So there are 9 energy centers in human design. They loosely align with the chakra system. So when you're looking at this graph that I held up, I am going to point out. So the energy centers are here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have our root, our sacral or solar plexus, our throat. So they have different names based on where they're located in the body. So when I'm going to go the high level overview, when you are hearing about energy centers in the body for human design, that's what it's referring to. The other thing that you want to know about energy centers is that some of them are defined, which means colored in, and some of them are undefined, which means white, clear, right? So in this image, you can see there are some defined centers and then there are some open centers, right? We have 2 types. So that's all I want you to know today about the centers. 9 of them, defined, undefined. From there, within each energy center, there are numbers. You'll see little numbers. I'm going to keep holding up my chart because I don't know if you have yours in front of you, but you see all these numbers inside the energy centers. Those are referred to as gates. There are 64 gates in total within the 9 energy centers. And our gates are either active, which means there's a little circle around them, or they're inactive and there's no circle. Okay. So kind of just follows along the same path. It's like defined, undefined for the centers, active, inactive for the gates. Each gate is kind of said to contain a unique message that will be revealed to you, the individual, as you contemplate that gate. So there is like text, there's a little blurb about each gate. And with human design, you read it, you kind of see what resonates, you jot down what resonates, and then you just allow it to kind of simmer. That's how the process works. It's a little bit of like in the background. And as you think about it, contemplate it, more information kind of gets revealed to you. Has been my experience, and that is how it's suggested that you interact with human design. Also, each gate has, I'm going to say 3 that I'm going to focus on today. So a shadow side, which basically means like our lower vibration. So if you think of people use the term vibration, right? We have an energy about us. As a mindset coach, I like to talk about energy in the same way that I talk about emotions. So emotions can impact our energy. When we're feeling gratitude, that's one of the highest frequency emotions. Okay, the vibe, the energy around gratitude is off the charts, really high. Something like anger, jealousy, really low vibration, really low frequency. So when we're talking the shadow of a gate, it means typically the way that gate is expressing itself through us is like from a lower vibration, less supportive feeling. There is a gift with each gate, and that is kind of like when with ADHD, I often talk about kind of the strengths. So there are strengths and superpowers, and then there are challenges. So the gift is kind of like the benefit. It's the side of the coin that is like, it really serves me well to, I'm trying to think of an example, to be persistent, right? Persistence can be like a really solid quality. And then on the other hand, when we're like not in our best state, it can be almost manic, like impulsive, right? So depending on the energy, it presents itself differently. So there is a gift and a shadow with each gate. There's also what's called a superpower. That's kind of the language I'm going to use, which this gate in its highest expression, like let's say if you were in the gratitude vibe and you have this gate defined in your chart, in its highest expression, we would call that the superpower. So those are the 3 areas we're going to look at when we're talking about gates today: shadow, gift, superpower. I'm going to pause, just see if there are any questions yet before I like keep going on. If you're able to let me know if you have a chart in front of you, it can be helpful just so I know how much detail to go into, or if I'm better off just kind of using my chart as a guide. So if you would like to let me know if you have a chart, you can pop it in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to keep rolling through and assume that maybe you don't. Okay, so we've got the energy centers. I'm going to point it out again. We've got the 9 energy centers. We've got the gates, which are the numbers inside of the energy centers. And then connecting the energy centers, we have what's called channels. So these lines that are running between the energy centers are referred to as channels. And we have defined or active channels when it's colored through all the way. And then we have undefined or inactive channels, which are not colored through. That's all we really need to know about channels. We're not going to go that deep with it today. There is a lot of information with human design, so much information. So if you like go all in right away, it can be super overwhelming. I just want to give that kind of warning. There's so many details. Like the further you go, there's more information available. But at the root, it's very simple and basic. So the place to start is just with 3 areas, and we're going to talk a little bit about those. So we're going to talk about our type. So your type is made up of 2 numbers, right? So my type is 2-4. I'm going to go into detail a little bit about what the type means, but the 2-4 by definition means that I am an emotional generator. So I touched on the data that I did about a year ago with my membership and trying to pull some patterns and seeing what those patterns revealed. What I noticed is that many of the clients that I work with who are neurodivergent fall into the generator category, and I'll explain what that means. Okay, great. I see you have yours open. So if you have your chart in front of you, I'm going to show you where to look. This is the full. I'm going to open mine up full now so you can see it. So it'll look like this. The part that has the writing, if you look on the left-hand side, it'll say type. And then right across from the type, it'll tell you what type you are. And then profile, it'll tell you a number like 2-4, 5-1. So if you want to pop your type and your profile into the chat, I will better be able to speak like a little more specifically as I'm explaining some of this. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to use myself as an example, and then you can dig a little bit further in your chart. Okay, great. 5-1, and then does it say generator? Perfect. Does it say pure or emotional? I just want to, as we're talking generally, I want to make sure I'm inclusive of all the types that join this call. So I'm going to touch on the types, and then I'm going to spend a little more time on generator today because that's what I've found the pattern has been with the neurodivergent people that I work with. So the types, there are what's called manifestors. Manifestors are kind of known as like the spark that gets things going. They have the ability to like come up with an idea. It's like a spark, and basically they can create from that place, right? After manifestors, not after, they're all the same. Like there's no better, worse, no particular order. They're just different, right? Unique. I mentioned earlier on my Instagram, it's like a puzzle. So think of a jigsaw puzzle and all the different pieces. If everybody was like a red edge piece, we wouldn't have a puzzle. We would end up having a straight line. So just like a puzzle has all different types of pieces and it's required, like some of them have to have holes on 4 sides and some of them have to have connectors on 4 sides and some have to have a straight edge. And the same is with human design. It's like there are 5 pieces of the puzzle, and as humans, we make up these 5 different pieces. So manifestors, then we have generators. After generators, next we have projectors is another type. Manifesting generators is a type. Reflectors is a type. Let me think if I'm leaving any type out. I don't think so. That's the large. I don't have my specific. Again, I'm going to focus mainly on generators today because it's what I can most naturally speak to right now. So as a generator, what it tends to mean is you have access to basically an unending supply of energy. And it comes from the sacral chakra. So right down here, right? And it's like the driving force that kind of helps you get things done. Generators are meant to be the builders in the world. They are meant to like go, 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 go. So when you think of a time when you were like really lit up about something and enjoyed the work that you were doing, if you can reflect back on how that felt in your body, an example that comes to mind quickly for me is I used to manage a volunteer check-in tent, and we would have close to 3,000 volunteers check in every morning at 4:00 in the morning for a big cycling event, and they would get kind of farmed out to the different race areas. I loved it. I don't know how to explain it. Everyone thought I was crazy, but the energy of like checking in all these people at the same time and checking the computer and giving them their waivers and their assignments, like it was a lot and totally lit me up. I was like, that is a sign of a generator who's like in alignment with the work that they're doing. So generators are meant to like when you're appropriately connected to the work that you're doing, it can feel like you have this unending supply of energy. The trouble can come in when you are connected to something that doesn't light you up, or maybe it lit you up in the beginning and then at some point it stops and you don't disconnect and you keep going and going and going. Really what happens then is you can become what's referred to as a functional generator, which it's like you don't have an awareness that your body is tired and wearing down, not in the way that some of the other types do. So some of the other types would be like, okay, this is great and I'm exhausted and it's a no. Generators tend to be like, I don't feel lit up, but I can keep going, so I probably should. And so there's a tendency to keep going or stay attached to something that is taking up energy when it might serve you to no longer be connected to it. So it's just to try that on for size. Because I know we have a 5-1. I'm gonna address the numbers, right? Just so that you have an idea of the different types and how we could play around with experimenting. So I have a book. I totally recommend it to everybody. I will put a link in the description after this is over. Let me just go to a 5-1 profile, and I want to give you an idea of some of the suggestions, right? So again, if you're a 5-1, I want you just to listen and see if there's anything about it that resonates. And then also if there's anything that feels like resistance, like if you experience resistance to it. Okay. Again, hold it loosely. It's not meant to be like, this is you. Just feel into what resonates, feel into what you feel resistance around. 5-1s tend to be natural leaders, guides, and teachers in life. You're bright, clever, expert at problem solving, lead with great vision and an imaginative approach to resolving issues and overcoming all manner of obstacles. You cope, you solve, you advise. Your research and homework are meticulous. You're determined to get to the bottom of things. No one could seem more thorough or dependable than you. There's a discipline to your leadership. You are the swan whose appearance impresses everyone. What they may not see is how you're furiously paddling beneath the surface. So the language is not always, I'm just going to put it out here. The language is not neutral. I think it's my daughter who's a 5-1. And when I first read this, she was like, I don't know about this. But then she was like, actually, though, there are parts of that really do resonate. So that's just like the start of the paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But like, let's say that information came in. The way that you would contemplate it is you would really just see what part stood out to you and like make a little note of it. What part felt a little like, did you experience some resistance to? Make a little note of it. And then just sit with it. Like you don't need to do a ton with it. It's like it kind of does the work for you. You expose yourself to the information and then you kind of try it on for size. The way you can okay, let's touch on strategy next. So there are different types, different combinations. Like I said, I'm a 2-4. I see there's a 5-1. There someone could be a 3-5. You could be a 1-6. Like so numbers 1 through 6 can be combined in all different types of ways. What's interesting is when your number, the first number in your type is smaller than the second number. So like I'm a 2-4. That indicates somebody who is meant to go on a very personal journey first and then translate that experience to others. So for me as a 2-4, that is something that I can like experiment with and see how it's true or not. for me, it actually really does resonate. I'm like, "Oh, I had to go through all these things to get these nuggets of information, and now I'm like, oh, all about sharing," right? Part of the reason I have the soapbox. If the number at the start of your design type is larger, it tends to mean that you don't necessarily have the path of that learning, like, you don't have to necessarily learn the lessons first so that you can translate it to others. You actually can focus outward first, like others focused, and then the journey comes more inward. So it's just like a little bit of a different experience. Again, it's a suggestion. It's not written in stone. That tends to be the pattern. So like a question that you might ask is, how is it true? Or like a question that I might ask is, how is it true that I've had to experience something first and then I translate it to other people, right? And in reverse, how is it true maybe if your first number is larger that you actually go out there and help the people first and then you pull it in towards you for more inner learning? An experiment would just be asking the question and kind of sitting with it and exploring that. Yeah, too much so sometimes. I totally understand that one. Okay. So let's touch on authority for a minute. I'm only going to really focus again right now on one because I want to kind of hone in on what's most familiar for me and who is on the call right now. I do within the membership, I do kind of dive deeper when we have some human design focus calls. I'll dive deeper into individual profiles and we take a look at all of them. It just requires me to pull some more specific data. So I want to focus on emotional authority. And that basically means when well, actually let's just start with the pure authority first and then we'll go to emotional because I think it might make more sense. So authority is basically the way that we're meant to make decisions. And so if you're a pure generator or if you like don't have that emotional before your type, the way that you tend to make decisions is like instantaneous. We would say in your gut, but it's even lower than that. It's more like in your root sacral area and it's like you just know. It's pretty instant. So there's an exercise that I did yesterday with my group and it was just asking one of the members that was being coached a series of yes no questions. It's a great way for someone to help you kind of warm up your decision making ability if you're a pure generator or you don't have that emotional before you're a type. So you just want to have someone say, I'm going to ask you questions and I want you to like think right now of the answers, not think. Let me take that back. The thing is, I don't want you to think. Our brains are so quick. So, like, our sacral response is instantaneous. Just like if you think of a toddler, toddlers don't actually need to debate and think. Like, they know if they want something or if they don't. They're like, yes, no, instantaneous. As adults, we have learned to go to like deflect our decision making ability that we're born with to our brain. So we want to get logical about the decisions that we make, which can be okay for some people. We're going to talk about that. But for those of us that don't need to do that, right? The pure generator, we just actually need to go with our gut, like the first thing that comes to mind before our logical brain has time to step in and like interrupt and think about it. That can take like less than 2 seconds. Really. It's like, do you like chocolate? I just want you to think of the answer. Again, I'm going to let me change that language. I want you to respond when I ask the question. Do you like pizza? Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? Do you like to go on road trips? Do you like to fly in airplanes? Do you like to be a passenger in a car? Do you like to balance your checkbook? Do you like to grocery shop? Do you like to be in large crowds of people? Do you want to be alone? Okay. So with that series of questions, I just want you to check in with yourself and notice how quickly did those answers come to you? Did you notice a difference where some of them you actually needed to pause or you hesitated and you went up to your thinking brain to decide? That's not the energy that we're talking about. The answers where you didn't have to think at all and they just came to you, that's what we want to practice. So when you don't have that emotional wave, that's how you want to make your decisions. If you have the emotional wave, which I know on this call, we do have a few people, I have that wave as well. It means we are not we're not designed necessarily to make decisions in that way. We need to actually feel the excitement of a decision. So we may be a yes out the gate. An opportunity may come and we may be like, yes, yes, I'm doing it. Impulsivity, right? And dive in. And then we might realize a week later, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't want to do this. But we responded before we let our emotional wave come through. The emotional wave looks different. I'm going to give a very basic level of it. It can, with all things human design, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. Like it starts here at the surface, kind of like an iceberg, this much information. And then underwater, there's like so much more. So again, I want you to know I'm going to give you the very, very basic. And then there's so much more detail and depth we could go into. So with the emotional wave, it's going to look different for different people. But if you are a person where you receive an opportunity and your gut response is like, yes, you're so excited, which is very common when we're neurodivergent. You want to wait that out and like picture yourself kind of surfing or riding the wave. So let yourself come down from that excitement, right? And then you want to wait and see if that comes back. Like if it returns and you're like a yes, okay, yeah, I really do want to do this. Sometimes you even want to wait and let that go down a second time and then see if you have a third, like yes. So you want multiple yeses before you actually commit and attach your energy to something. Part of the reason why is as an emotional authority, it can be really hard to detach from something. So it's important that we connect to the things that are meant for us, that we're meant to connect to. Otherwise, it's going to take a ton of information to disconnect from that. It's going to take a lot of like energy and work to close that loop and walk away from it. And so it's just worth keeping in mind. I'm curious if you have noticed or have any examples that you can think of where you maybe didn't wait for that emotional wave and you just like committed and then later on regretted having made that decision, right? Because it was like, I thought I was supposed to do it, but clearly now I'm not supposed to do this, right? The emotional wave can help with that. All right. Let me, any questions? Any questions about that? Okay. We're going to get really specific with the ADHD component towards the end. We're going to talk a little bit about gates. So I just want to put it out there again. The primary way to play around with your human design is to just focus on your type, your strategy, and your authority. So that's going to be that 2-4 or that 5-1, the emotional generator, and then the authority is emotional. We talked about. For some people, it's not emotional. For others, it is. The strategy. Let's touch on strategy. We haven't talked about that yet. Okay, great. Makes sense. So the strategy is, how do I want to explain strategy? So let me first show you where to locate it on your chart. So if you look on the left side column, it's going to actually say strategy. Mine says respond. So my strategy as an emotional generator is to respond. I'm thinking that'll make sense for you as well as an emotional generator, but I'm not sure if the 5-1 changes it. So let me know if your strategy is to respond as well, or if there's a different strategy there. These are really the three pieces that we want to start out with playing with the most. Our type, our strategy. Okay, great. I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so to respond, this is an interesting topic because I hear all the time from people, wait, so I have to wait to respond? And it's like, yes, this is what we're meant to do, but it doesn't mean exactly what it sounds like. So, as someone with the respond strategy, it means we are not necessarily meant to go out there and like create the thing. We're not meant to force um, opportunities, results, connections. We're not meant to force anything. We're meant to set an intention. So we may get an idea of something that we would like to do, jot it down, write it out, make a note of it, right? Like, I would like to, I intend to. I'm like, I intend to have 500 people in my membership. That's an example, right? So some people, some mentors would coach me to like go out there and get them, like make it happen, like take massive action again and again and again until you force the thing to happen. As someone who has the strategy of respond, not necessarily true. So the way it would look for me is I write the intention down and I hold on to it and I kind of open up to the possibility of it. I do take massive action, but not from the place of trying to make something happen. What massive action looks like to me is following my interest, which is where it meets really interestingly with ADHD, which is interest-based attention. So, like, getting out there and playing, doing what sounds interesting, feels interesting, the whole time carrying the intention of what I would like to create, the result I would like to create. So, it's not forcing myself to take actions that people have told me are what will create that result. It's actually following what interests me, and believing, inviting the opportunities. So generators, we're going to talk a little bit more of the like woo piece now because it really fits well with this. Humans, let's just say we all agree that humans have auras, energetic auras. I've actually had mine photographed because in Sedona you can do that, which is also really fun. So they'll take a picture of you and it captures your aura. Auras generally for humans, let's just say, are like 4 to 6 inches around the outside of your body. It's like an energetic color, right? So they're different colors: green, blue, red, yellow, orange. Some people can actually see them. I cannot. But it's basically like our energy, our vibration, our frequency. Generators, their auras, just in comparison, I want you to picture this rather than the 4 to 6 inches around their body. Generators' auras are expansive, really, really large. So, like, let's just say 6 feet as compared to the 4 to 6 inches. What that allows a generator to do when they are really living life within, like, by their design. So like when we go back to the puzzle piece analogy, if you're like meant to be a red edge, you are fully showing up as a red edge piece. If you are meant to be in the middle and hold it all together, you're showing up in the middle, holding it all together. If you're meant to like be with the blue stripes in a corner, you are in the corner, both directions, blue stripe. So when you are actually living true to your design, that aura is open and magnetic, like very inviting. So generators tend to be like their aura can light up a room. The energy of their aura is so like drawing, inviting. So when we are like in the zone of like functioning the way we're designed to function, that aura is like at peak magnetics. It like draws like no one's business. Just picture like stepping in a room and the people that are meant to connect with you are like, "Hi, I'm so and so. What's your name? What do you do?" That is like, thank you, Aura, for that. You did have to take action to put yourself in the room, right? And it might be massive action to put yourself in the room, but what actually creates the results is like, mm, not directly in your hands. The way it's in your hands is that don't you loosen your grip on conditioning, right? So you stop trying to live in ways that other people suggest you should be living. Stop trying to plan and function and do things in ways that people suggest you should be planning, functioning, and doing things, and really listen to, like, what came to me yesterday was the Google search bar within. So we have one on the computer, and I actually apparently have one within me that came up during a meditation. I just pictured like, oh, I can go to my inner Google and put the information, the question in, and like, what is right for me? When we are doing that, that aura is open, it pulls the right opportunities towards us, and then we have an opportunity to respond. So in that same example I just gave of like putting your like wanting to create a result, let's say in business, I know a number of people on my calls have a business. You set that intention and then you take action to put yourself in different places based on what's interesting to you. Like a random example, I was at like a bingo with a friend at a wine bar last week. Sounded fun. I love bingo. Why not? We're sitting at this table of like 7 women. One of them happens to be a coach and certified through the same place that I was. Like, how does that happen energetically, right? And as we were talking, she was like, "Oh, I know of this great group, this great networking group." So then I looked it up and joined. I didn't go out just like searching and I have to find a networking group, and I was just doing what sounded interesting and fun and like opened up to an opportunity. That's like a small example of what it can look like. So responding means we need to wait for something outside of us, external, to respond to. That is ideal. When we are doing that, and I want you to reflect back in life, some of the like best opportunities is the word that's coming to mind that you've had, was it in response to something? Right? Because as I started to look back, I was like, oh, actually, it does make a lot of sense. Most of my favorite gigs that I had, jobs, I responded to someone. I was not looking. It wasn't even on my radar for most of them. I just had a friend who was like, "Hey, I think you'd be good at this or you'd like this." And then I responded and it was great until it wasn't, right? And then I left. So that's what respond means. Any questions about to respond? I feel like that is an area that gets a little bit sticky sometimes. Questions arise around that. Any questions around responding? Okay. Doesn't look like it. Okay. So I am going to just go into there are some gates now that I want to share that are interesting. So my brain likes patterns. And so looking for patterns and then also just noticing the different types of gates that are out there. These are the ones that are directly tied to um, ADHD, I would say. Yeah, it makes sense because you get impulsive and then into trouble. Yes. So, like, learning, practicing, being open and curious about an emotional wave is what helped me at first. I was like, "Okay, I could say yes, but let me just wait and see if this dies off in the next day or 2. And then let me see if it comes back." Human design actually has come back to me again and again and again. It's why here we are, right? Because I was excited and then I let it go. And then I was excited and then I let it go. And then I was excited and I worked with a coach and then I let it go. And I worked on it for myself. And then it came back into my sphere and I was excited and I'm like, "Okay, this wave has been with me for 2 years." So it's like, "Nope, it's interesting. There must be something here for me." So I'm following my interest, believing that when I do, it will impact the people that I work with. So it's really like learning to trust your gut, check in with yourself, and kind of experiment with living in your design. Okay, so let's get specific with some gates. So gate 9 there are 3 I'm gonna talk about. There are more that are connected to, I would say, ADHD, but I'm gonna talk about 3 in particular. So it's gate 9, gate 52, and gate 53. Now, I also wanna preface, this does not mean if you have this gate, you're ADHD, and if you don't have it, you're not. There is no form of, like, diagnosing here. And you may have tendencies with the gate 9, and you may have tendencies without them. That is how individual, human design is, and it takes a little more diving into it one-on-one to get really specific about that. But I will say, gate 9, the area, like, what it is kind of responsible for, the energy that it manages is tied to focus and attentiveness, which is fascinating. So, like, if I look on my chart, and I'll show you how to kind of see if you have a gate defined or not. Look on your chart, and gate 9 is, I was just looking at it. Oh, it's down in your sacral center. So it's down here. So I don't have gate 9 defined in my chart, which kind of makes sense, right? So what you would do is you would look at gate 9 and see if you have it active or not. If there's a circle, it is, and if there's not a circle, it's not. So I don't have gate 9 in my chart. Gate 9 is responsible for focus, attentiveness. The shadow of gate 9 can mean you feel stuck, you feel a lack of energy. It can also mean you feel restless, fidgety, escapism, can't rest. So I want you to look at the range of things that are tied to the, like, lower vibration of gate 9. So as someone who doesn't have it defined, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. What does that mean for me? What does that look like for me? How does it show up? The gift of gate 9 is determination. So, like, while all those things may be true, in its highest expression, when we are, like, more aligned, our aura is clearer, we're in the energy of, like, walking our design, the gift of it is, like, determination, the drive to stay determined, right? The superpower is the feeling of invincibility. Like, I can do anything, anything's possible, which is so common with neurodivergent people. Like, the realm of possibility and out of the box thinking is so huge. Also, let me just go to really quickly. I had pulled up exactly what that center is responsible for, and it might help just to see that, to hear that as well. So sacral center. Nope. Oh, there we go. Life force energy, sexuality. So, like, the energy that's connected to our sacral center. Each center has an energy that's tied to it. So I just thought it would be interesting to take a peek at that. All right. Let's look at gate 52. This one also has a loose thread to ADHD tendencies. So gate 52, if you're looking on your chart, it is going to be down in the root center at the very bottom. You'll see a number 52. So I do have gate 52 defined in my chart. So there's a circle and there's a half a line. So what that means is I have half of that channel, and the channel would be the 952 channel. Just trying to share the language so you can see it. So if you see the number 9 and the number 52 and the channel between them, that would be called a channel. If you have both gates, the channel will be colored in. If you have one of the gates, only half of the channel will be colored in. If you have none of the gates, none of it will be there. So gate 52 is tied to stillness and, like, being a couch potato, kind of just like, ugh. So I hear a lot of the time, especially when someone's newer on this journey or they just have joined my membership, they're not familiar. They're like, I don't know, but I just, like, wonder if I'm lazy, right? Or, like, people have told them they're lazy. And it's kind of like, no, I don't think that's it. There's something else going on. Gate 52 is really the gate that kind of helps to navigate and manage this energy. the shadow side of it. So, like, when it's in what it's called as detriment, you can feel stuck, that you can feel like giving up, the energy of collapse, restless energy, burnout can happen there. Okay. This is all kind of connected to gate 52. The gift of gate 52, which is like when you're living in the higher expression of it, the gift that come from it is like the gift of restraint. So, um, when it's at its extreme shadow, it's like, ugh, I have nothing. I'm really going to close all things off and just sit on the couch. When it's in a little bit higher expression, it's like, well, there's all these things, but I'm going to actually restrain it to this manageable amount. The superpower is stillness. So like I would say like mindset, managing our mind to be able to experience the feeling of stillness is like what in its highest expression, stillness is what is experienced. It doesn't mean that you're resigned to always feeling like you're stuck, you have to give up, you're in collapse. That's an indicator, maybe you can experiment with it, that you may be like out of alignment somewhere else. You may be connected to something that energetically you're not meant to be connected to anymore. Or you may have said yes to something that could have been a no and maybe would have been more supportive as a no. Will pull you down into that lower expression. And so, kind of clearing that aura, releasing some of those things can lift you up a little bit higher to that restraint versus the full on collapse. I hope that kind of is making sense description wise. Okay, the last gate we're going to look at is gate 53. And so it's in the same area as gate 52, two numbers to the left. It will either be defined or undefined. There were full-on descriptions. I'm just pulling little bullet points here to like pique people's interest, really. So gate 53, what's interesting about that gate? It has to do with beginnings, starting things, right? So this gate kind of manages or navigates the energy of beginnings and starting things. In its shadow or detriment, it shows up as like starting a ton of new things and not finishing them, lack of follow through. Right? So like starting. I hear this a ton from people who are like just beginning or working together, or I'll get emails where people are like, I can start things, but I can't finish anything. I would say gate 53 is kind of where to look, right? The gift of gate 53 is expansion. So the gift of being a person who can start things is that when you do that in a higher vibration, you can expand what you're working on, right? You can expand, like you have basically it can be kind of like the Midas touch, like anything you touch expands, right? It's like can be a really magical gate, and it can feel really challenging when you're like stuck in a lower vibration energy around it and you're starting a million things and not finishing them. The gift of, like I said, the gift of gate 53 is expansion. The superpower can be superabundance. And so, like when you hear of some of the, I'm trying to think, I'm having one of my working memory challenge moments. I want to say Russell Brunson, founder of Virgin Music and Virgin Airlines and Virgin Cruises. People who have identified as ADHD, who have had this ability, so many business owners as well, to create phenomenal things, start and begin and expand like empires. They are probably in a high expression, and I'm curious, of gate 53. So my guess would be they have gate 53 and they're in the highest vibration of it. Questions around any of those gates or how that kind of works? There's so much within human design that can be unpacked that we have not touched on. I know it can be overwhelming, the amount of information, so I just wanted to skim the surface. If there are not questions, I'm going to probably wrap up there. I am going to give just a little plug for people that are not in the membership. I know many of you are. Great. Thank you so much for being here. If you are curious about learning more in regards to how human design can impact your ADHD and how the two might dance together, check out Brain Brilliance. It's a monthly membership. I will put the link in the description box. I would love to have you in there. And we do double down. Typically, there's a month where I just take it and focus solely on human design, and we dive deeper into everybody's charts. So if there's no questions, thank you for being here. I am going to wrap this up for today. All right. See you soon. Bye.